All right, so first play we're going to look at, 2nd and 2, one of the Patriots' first offensive plays.
What's going on, everyone? Mike Kadlick and Taylor Kyles here for CLNS Media, back with another episode of the Patriots Daily Podcast, powered by PrizePicks, powered by Omaha Steaks, and today powered by an unfortunately very sickly Taylor Kyles. So I was down at Foxborough today. Taylor Kyles was not. Taylor's dealing with a bout of some sort of illness. We're all going to do good. We're going to push through. He was currently limited today on the injury report, so we're going to get through this as best as we can, give you guys some game keys, talk about practice, and maybe keep it to a half hour to get Taylor back to resting up. But regardless, we are here and ready to react to some Patriots news that just came out. Injury report just dropped. Taylor and Carlton Davis, Marcus Jones, Howard Landry, Robert Spillane once again did not practice today for the Patriots. Christian Ellis was back on the field. He was limited with the illness. And then Christian Barmore, a full participant today. So nothing to worry about there. But as we'll get to later on in the show when we do our other game keys, talking about containing this Ravens offense, 2 cornerbacks, an edge rusher, and a linebacker not playing is no bueno against this Baltimore offense.
No, and I mean, this is not too much different from yesterday, obviously. Christian Ellis is a solid person to get back. And when you're talking about Lamar Jackson on the other side, you do want somebody who has his speed. So that is a positive, but you don't have 2 of your starting cornerbacks most likely, or at least you're trending that way. So it could be maybe a Harold Landry situation where you say, these are veterans, let's just give them some time so they can be as healthy as possible. But I do wonder what you do in the situation. Like, so Charles Woods obviously is somebody who steps up, but then maybe Miles Battle has to start for you. Mm-hmm. I think at that point you really need to put Christian Gonzalez on Zay Flowers and make sure that he shadows, because Zay's the only guy that really scares you in that Ravens receiving core. And if you're going to be down all these other guys, I think you have to make sure it's a priority that you don't end up with Zay Flowers against a Charles Woods or a Miles Battle. No disrespect to those guys, but they are not starting caliber players. And Zay Flowers is one of the more electric receivers in the league and someone who creates a lot of separation. So you got to make sure that you are at least funneling coverage towards him in your zones and things like that. But if you're going to try to man up, which I'm not sure the Patriots will do a ton of against this Ravens team because of Lamar Jackson. But when you do go one-on-one, make sure that he's not being covered by one of your depth guys if possible.
Yeah, it's and again, I'm with you on the Landry front, where it seems like he is, as he's been throughout the year, more of a, rest up, maybe get out there a little bit on a Friday and then, be ready to go on Sunday. But even still, like, we've seen that he hasn't been the same player he was early in the year because of his health. So even if he is out there, you don't necessarily know what to expect from him. Robert Spillane here, another one where we talked about it a little bit yesterday with what was a foot injury, now an ankle, still not out of practice. So that does not look good for him whatsoever. And then obviously Marcus and Carlton Davis too at corner, which I know I said we'll get it to in a second. But against this Ravens team that can bring an explosive element. I know Lamar hasn't been himself so much this year, but he was back in practice today, back with the the flu symptoms that he had. So he'll be looking to be ready to go. And it just, again, we've talked about the idea of the Patriots, maybe faltering a little bit down the stretch, but it seems right now, like, at least defensively, it might be more of injuries that hurt them more than anything. They've also, gotten worse on that side of the football, but these injuries are no bueno, that's for sure. So, that is our quick and dirty injury report here ahead of our game keys here for Thursday. Josh McDaniels spoke a lot today down in Foxborough. Spoke about how teams are defending Stephon Diggs, Hunter Henry. Spoke a little bit about Steph's decreased snap count today. Obviously made nothing of it. Said that just because we haven't earned the snaps and earned the rights to get back on the field, essentially was saying that's why Steph's snap count was down. Obviously, he took it more literally. He was asked about, the percentages, which have gone down, but he was doing the typical coach speak there. Talked about TreVeyon Henderson as well and getting him some more reps. He said if we can get him on the field 50 times, we'd love to. So we will talk about both of those things here. But let's start actually, Taylor, with your first game key, which will be improving versus man coverage, because Drake has gotten worse against these types of defenses. Ravens obviously a high percentage of man coverage. How do they attack this? Do you think they can attack it? I know we talk about this being a game key, but is this something that can improve, or do you think this is going to be, more of a hindrance than I guess a helper this week versus the Ravens?
Yeah, so I feel like the past few weeks, especially since week 12, the biggest issue has just been that Drake hasn't been very accurate. And that's really been the biggest drop off that I've seen. There are times where, yes, like tight coverage plays a factor every now and then. It's the NFL. That's going to happen. And as diverse and reliable as this veteran receiving core has been, the reality is you don't have that elite separator, right? You don't have that guy who you really like, the Julian Edelman type, who is going to win one matchup every time. Demario Douglas can be that guy. Stephon Diggs, in spurts on certain routes, but I think Stephon Diggs is limited. Matt Collins, especially when it comes to some of those contested targets, can be the guy who goes up and catches a ball that's high and in front of him. But he can also be a guy who gets stuck at the top of routes at times, and maybe, on some of those contested throws doesn't necessarily present the same kind of reliable receiving threat. So I think that they can improve. A lot of it's going to be Drake Maye just putting the ball where it be. And that's especially true against cover zero. And that's something that the Ravens run a lot. I think they run it more than any defense in the league. And I think man coverage specifically, the Patriots have been solid. Like when you're talking about cover one, which is the most normal version you're going to see, where you have that post safety in the middle. And defenses will usually try to use that extra receiver who's not in man coverage or not defending deep and have them either be a robber over the middle in the intermediate or the short part of the field. They'll blitz or they'll spy. Now, Drake does a great job of deciphering these things very quickly and going to where he needs to based on the pre-snap read. But then there's also times like what we saw on the fourth down snap that Josh McDaniels actually kind of referenced. And we've even seen it against the Buccaneers. There was that fourth down that didn't work out where Drake kind of holds the ball and then ends up throwing it into the dirt. Sometimes teams are going to dial up a form of cover zero where you blitz the middle linebacker, but you drop both the edge defenders in a 5-man front. So you're still blitzing 3, 4. Sometimes it's 3 where that linebacker will really just be covering the back. But a lot of the time you'll see those guys drop to take away those short throws underneath over the middle that Drake Maye likes to throw in a lot of those crucial situations like a third down or like fourth down. The Ravens run those kinds of schemes. So you're going to have a plan and be wary of schemes like you ran last week where you do have 2 in-breakers in that situation and you don't really have a lot of other viable route concepts. So I think that maybe some plays could put them in a little better or more advantageous situation where you don't just have 2 options that are being clouded and now Drake has to make a play. But also, as Mike Vrabel mentioned, there's no perfect plays, right? Sometimes the defense is just going to have the right thing dialed up and you can't just throw away plays in your playbook. A lot of that is contingent on timing as well. But I think one thing I am worried about is these Ravens defensive backs are very good. I will say Marlon Humphrey, which is not something you'd expect, but he's someone that teams have targeted quite a bit. So I wouldn't be surprised if they actually throw at him a lot. But I wonder how they're going to do it because you want to avoid Chidobe. Well, I don't even know if Chidobe Awuzie is going to play. If you have to throw against a backup, that obviously is going to change the picture very much. Because do we know what the Ravens injury report looks like?
Today it just came in. So Awuzie did not practice again today.
Okay, so that definitely, oh my gosh, wait, let me look at this whole thing just so I get an idea of who's going to. Oh my, this is such an obnoxious way to do your injury report. Why does it look like space? It looks like a
galaxy. Are you on the Raven social? I have it just on the email we got, but
yeah, no, this is super obnoxious the way they have it on their website. But anyway, Chidobe Awuzie is looking like he's trending toward not playing. That would be really bad for them. So if there's a backup in, again, that does change the complexion. I feel a lot more confident there as someone you can kind of pick on. But Nate Wiggins, a guy where maybe you take advantage of the fact that he's kind of a slider build, but he's very competitive, very physical. So not a guy I'd necessarily want to test as much as some of the other guys. Like I said, potential backup in Marlon Humphrey. But I wonder how they're going to do it because Humphrey has struggled against quickness and he struggled against speed. So I think Demario Douglas could be a pretty good option there. But when you look at the plan last week, there wasn't a whole lot of Demario Douglas. And I know Josh McDaniels mentioned a lot of guys didn't see snaps, and that was partially what he used as explanation for Stephon Diggs. But there was also the fact that some packages, you had Hunter Henry as the slot receiver without Stephon Diggs on the field. You'd have Matt Collins on the outside and Kayshon Boutte on the outside. Well, if Demario Douglas and Stephon Diggs aren't on the field for obvious passing situations, that kind of doesn't smell right to me because I understand that, Hunter Henry is a reliable target and all these things. But at the same time, you had him covered by TreVeyon Johnson, which worked
Yeah.
on one of the routes that they ran against each other, but didn't really work out the other times. That's a pretty significant mismatch. So I don't know whether it's the fact that they're realizing that maybe Diggs' limitations as a separator at this point in his career are a little more significant, because, I mean, when you look, there are some press matchups where he doesn't really win and he does struggle to create separation, which is fair at this point in his career. It's not something that was unexpected. It's just more apparent than it was earlier. Then you got to kind of rely on your outside receivers. But Kayshon Boutte doesn't get a lot of targets, which I think is very odd, and I don't understand it. But you see Matt Collins getting a lot of those looks, and he, as I said, has been a little bit up and down with Drake Maye. So I think that they're going to have to be more precise than we've seen in recent weeks, and I think that's something that you can correct. I think you just got to, it's about execution at the end of the day, and we've seen them execute at a very high level. Need to do that on a more consistent basis. Maybe you dial up some more pure man beaters like bunch concepts and things like that. But I didn't really think that separation was the issue. I think the Bills may have caught them off guard by playing way more two-man than they've seen all season. Might have had something to do with it. But I don't think that it's just specifically man coverage that's giving them issues. I think the margin for error is smaller. And I think with Drake kind of sliding in the accuracy and sometimes not being in sync with his receivers at times, as we've seen with Hunter Henry on those two vertical routes earlier last week, those are some things that they definitely need to clean up.
So Josh mentioned today that Diggs and Henry have been getting double teamed, and it was something that they want to try and combat these next couple weeks. Looping that into what we've kind of mentioned, or what you kind of mentioned there about Diggs maybe not being the separator he used to be, or maybe even the separator we saw from him earlier in the year. Do you think that's why his snap count is starting to go down? And do you think that's something that's going to continue? Or do you think that might have been potentially a one-off thing with Buffalo? Do you think they can still kind of rely on him throughout the rest of the year to attack these defenses?
I don't think his role is significantly different. It just did. I mean, we've also seen other packages where it's an obvious pass and he's not on the field, but it really did stand out in that game because of the fact that sometimes Hunter Henry was smothered by TreVeyon Johnson. It really took him knowing what was coming and then being able to use his physicality, which maybe that was what they thought. They thought, hey, Hunter Henry's bigger. At least we have a size mismatch. But I think that's just what Stefon Diggs has been, where he's not a great run blocker, so that limits where and how you want to use him.
Right.
And he's not really the DeMario Douglas, where he's not crazy explosive and he's not really a downfield threat. Like, I can't really remember. He'll win on crossing routes, that's for sure. And a lot of the time they'll use motion to help him out. We can't really remember a whole lot of times where he's created a ton of separation downfield. Usually it's a great throw, like the drop in the bucket against Tennessee or the back shoulder a little bit earlier than that. So it's not really surprising. I think it was, like anybody else, just a weird game plan last week where it did affect people's snap counts. But, I mean, Diggs isn't a run blocker, and he's not an elite separator. So you want to scheme him opportunities against zones and things like that, but his role is somewhat limited by those facts.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they attack it. As we said, these Ravens like to run man coverage on their end, obviously banged up now in the secondary. Even McDaniels, you mentioned that Humphrey's game has kind of dipped a little bit, but he mentioned today how, they have guys at three levels, mentioned Kyle Hamilton on the back end, mentioned Roquan, and then did give Humphrey a little shout at the end, so you still got to respect that guy. So even if he is a little bit down, he has been one of the better corners in the league over the last couple seasons. So you cannot necessarily count that out whatsoever. We got another key here on the offensive side of the ball, talking about the run game. So we'll get to that in a second. But first, I got to tell you guys about our friends over at PrizePicks, because this episode and every episode of Patriots Daily is brought to you by PrizePicks. It is the holiday season, and that means that it is time to be right. And there is only one place where it feels the best to be right, and that is on PrizePicks. We got Thursday football tonight in the professional football league. We have the Rams. We have the Seahawks. That one is out in Seattle tonight. Big one for the NFC West and how the standings will potentially shape up out there. So I'm going to pull out my PrizePicks app right now and give you guys a play. Before I do, and while that gets loaded, a reminder that PrizePicks has a new feature. It is called early payouts. So if your lineup gets off to a hot start, you now have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. It's super simple to play. All you do is pick more or less on at least 2 player props. And if you get your picks right, you can cash in. We got Sam Darnold, more or less than 227.5 passing yards. I'm going to go with more for Darnold. I think it's going to be a high-flying one tonight out in Seattle. And to match it with a Rams player, Kyren Williams more than half a total touchdown. Sign up on PrizePicks today. Put that lineup in. Follow along. Use that code CLNS, and you will get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. All right, we talked about beating man coverage. Now we switch it over to the run game and how the Patriots can lean on we talked about it. Use this run game to propel you into the postseason. You finally hit a groove last week, season high, nearly 250 yards. Obviously, Henderson, had the 2 long touchdown runs, helped out that cause, but that's something that he's been able to do here now. I think Amit sent us a stat earlier. He has 4 rushing touchdowns of 50-plus yards. That's the most of a rookie in NFL history. So he's completely rolling. So instead of making this a double segment, let's just get right into it and start off before we talk about the run game. TreVeyon Henderson, what he's been for this team, is he doing enough right now to win the Offensive Rookie of the Year? And do you think that his play in turn can again keep helping propel this run game for the Patriots?
I think he has. Now, TreVeyon's, the pass protection has been what it is. Definitely still a work in progress. But, I mean, he's been a freaking dynamo. And it really started. So, going back to week 10, you can see that he hasn't just been one of the best rookies in the NFL. He's been one of the best running backs in the NFL. And Josh McDaniels mentioned that he would have liked to get TreVeyon Henderson a little bit more involved. And I mentioned I could have seen like 3 or 4 plays where they probably could have run the ball more in that second half, but also just the way that the game went and the fact that TreVeyon turned 1 touch into a score on to begin one drive also played a factor. I'm sorry, in that. So when you look at his numbers since week 10, again, another reason Josh McDaniels might want him more involved, he's tied for the 22nd most touches in the league, but he has the 7th most yards before contact averaged, 3rd most yards after contact average, 3rd most yards per rush, and he's tied for the 3rd most touchdowns with 6. So clearly one of the best players at his position. Only R.J. Harvey, also among rookies, I believe, has more total touchdowns. R.J. Harvey has 10. I think TreVeyon Henderson has 8 there. And then just looking at the entire season, rush EPA, 3rd most, EPA per rush, 3rd most, rushing yards over expected per attempt, 3rd most. The advanced metrics absolutely love this kid. It's pretty easy to see why. And then when you also look at the guys that are kind of in the race with him, it's like Tet McMillan, Emeka Egbuka, Jackson Dart, Tyler Shook. I don't think anybody in that group has really, no disrespect to Tet McMillan especially.
I think that's the one. I think it's Tet. I think he's the only one. And if Carolina can keep winning some games and stay up in the South race, he might do it. But, I mean, Dart's missed a bunch of games. Emeka Egbuka's kind of fallen off with that Tampa team. So, like, I think not that it's TreVeyon's award to lose right now, but he clearly has the inside track right now.
He's doing things you don't usually see, where you don't really see offensive rookies taking scores from one side of the field to the other. So I do think he absolutely should be the front runner, but Tet McMillan would probably have something to say about it. But he's just been absolutely fantastic. And while I have been adamant that you shouldn't overwork him, and I think that's very important, like we saw with Ramondre Stevenson earlier in his career, and knowing that TreVeyon Henderson isn't even as big as Ramondre is when he was kind of getting run into the ground in 2021, 2022, and kind of that time frame. But, I mean, this season, you're in the later portion. I'm okay if they want to increase TreVeyon Henderson and make him more of like a 60-40, 70-30 kind of split. Obviously, his role is going to be limited because he's not a very reliable pass blocker. But with the explosiveness that he's shown in this, we've seen the pass game is going to sputter at times probably unless they really just turn it around. Over the past month or so, we have seen some inconsistency. So if that's going to continue, TreVeyon Henderson is going to be key, especially with this run game feeling like they're gaining some more momentum. So should be the front runner. And leading into the Ravens game, it's going to be a huge test because this is the best run defense that they've seen in a long time. I know that for the most part in this season, maybe the Ravens haven't been a great run defense, but in the past month or so, they've been very solid. So this is not going to be the, let's figure out if we can get our doubles and let's just start chipping away and see if we can take advantage of a bad unit like it's been in the past. This is going to be a lot more difficult. And if the Patriots want to move the ball, I think it's still going to have to be behind the right side of Morgan Moses and Mike Nwenu, where we know they were used to a much better effect last week. I loved seeing Morgan Moses pulling in a bit of a different way than we had seen, and also get heavy and exploit these edges specifically because Draymond Jones and Mike Green haven't been the best edge setters in the world. They've been pretty vulnerable there. So that's TreVeyon Henderson's music. If you want to try some crack tosses, some outside zone to try to get him on the perimeter, you might be able to have some success. It's not going to be easy again because this Ravens defense, per usual, these boys can tackle and these boys can hit. Now, is Roquan Smith actually? Let me see. Did he return to practice?
He was full today.
Okay, he was full. Yep. So that just makes things even more difficult.
Yeah.
And I believe Trenton Simpson, who they has been the backup linebacker with Teddy Buchanan out, I think he's actually better as a run defender than anything else. So not going to be easy, but I do think that if you really attack those edges and you get to those second level blocks, you could have some success.
Can they match what they have? Can the Patriots match what Baltimore has in Lamar Jackson with Drake Maye in the run game again? Do you think we see that little uptick again, or do you think that you avoid that if you can?
Well, the Ravens don't run Lamar as much as they used to, and that's something that should be acknowledged. But also, like, Drake is not that guy. I don't think it's like 1st and 10, and you want to run Drake Maye out of like pistol with some kind of like
start going QB power, just completely mess it up.
I don't think you want to do that. But another reason the run game is going to be important. Mike Vrabel actually specifically mentioned somebody asked about the Ravens. I'm sorry. Ravens defensive turnaround, and he said, "Well, like nobody's really trying to run the ball on them," and that felt pretty important. Like there's certain things that Mike Vrabel will say each week that really kind of catch my ear. And I feel like that one hasn't really been pressed quite as much or maybe like made as loud as it was in my head. But I think he sees vulnerabilities. And again, when he talked about this defense, he talked about how big they are on the inside. I think Josh McDaniels gave them that credit as well. Obviously, everybody respects Roquan Smith, but test them at least and see what you can do, because if you can be well-rounded, that's going to get you out of a lot of bad situations. And if the Ravens are going to play man coverage at one of the highest rates in the league and continue that against you, best way to solve man coverage is just to run the ball down someone's throat.
Those are one of the things that, like you said, you pick up. Some other people might not. That will be interesting to revisit after the game. Again, if they do really run the rock, ground and pound it, and have success, to kind of say like, well, teams haven't really tested them. It's interesting. And Vrabel does do that. He just dropped those little things. The one with there was a big one earlier this year. I can't remember. The Jets and their gimmick plays, and they really didn't have anything outside of their gimmick plays. And everyone's like, what are you talking about? He was kind of giving them a little jab, a little shot. So, hey, we'll see if they can get it going against these against the Ravens in the run game. Will be obviously mega important. All right, we got another ad here, and then we're going to talk about our last game key, which is containing Lamar Jackson and this Ravens offense. But, of course, I got to tell you guys about our friends at Omaha Steaks. From effortless holiday hosting to unforgettable gifts, Omaha Steaks delivers the world's best steak experience. With Omaha Steaks, you know exactly what you are gifting, and that is USDA certified tender steaks, premium proteins, elegant sides, and decadent, indulgent desserts. Shop the season's top gourmet gifts at omahasteaks.com. And right now, our listeners get an extra $35 off the top with code PATRIOTS at checkout. I told you guys earlier, I had some Omaha Steaks earlier this week, getting some family and friends together this weekend for the holidays, and we have another shipment coming in to make sure that we are locked and loaded with plenty of meats for the holiday season. You guys can do the same right now. Save on those gourmet gifts and holiday favorites at Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com. And for an extra $35 off the top, use code PATRIOTS at checkout. Terms apply. See site for details. Again, that's omahasteaks.com. Promo code PATRIOTS at checkout. All right. We talked about the offense both here with the game keys. We got one more, and it's the obvious one, but it is containing Lamar Jackson and also this Ravens run game and really the entire offense. I know I don't want to call it a cop-out as a game keep, but it's, you got to keep these guys in check, because when these Ravens are on, it's a different type of offense, and when they're rolling, they can catch fire. You got Zay Flowers, obviously, you have Mark Andrews, and to top that all off, like we mentioned earlier, the defense isn't healthy right now. So you could be down 2 of your top 3 corners. You could be down 2 of your linebackers, obviously an edge rusher and Harold Landry. So you're going to have to call in a lot of potential reserves here to try and take out this Ravens offense. So if you're the Patriots, Taylor, how would you handle business, against this Ravens offense?
First and foremost, man, you got to be gap sound and you need to be better in your fundamentals. It sounded like Zach Core alluded to some people maybe doing more than what they were supposed to do last week. And I never want to assume that people were doing that because I think that's a very slippery slope. But we did mention how there were times where sometimes guys would backdoor runs like Kairos Tonga. Again, I don't know what the call is, but there were a few times where it looked like he was kind of knifing into the backfield and took himself out of a position to potentially make a play. Also, some times where like you would see a dent in the line of scrimmage, but the guy wouldn't get off his block and the running back would run right past him. So you need to be better there because it's all about the run game here. Obviously, the passing game you have to respect, especially because the Ravens throw it deep more than most teams in the NFL. And Zay Flowers does a great job paying that off. And obviously, Mark Andrews, I know everybody's always concerned about tight ends. He can do a lot of damage over the middle, and Isaiah Likely is very athletic. But I think for the ground game, one, the fundamentals, but also show that you really can, one, stand up to the inside run because they're going to use read option. And on that read option, it's mostly going to be zones where Derrick Henry's going downfield, and he's going to try to punch you in the mouth, and then Lamar Jackson has the option to beat you on the edge. And we kind of hinted at this yesterday, but Harold Landry has struggled when he's in those one-on-one matchups against athletic linebackers. Last week, Josh Allen juked him for a touchdown, but he got called back for a hold on Christian Ellis. Justin Fields had him one-on-one. Harold Landry actually did his job on his own read. Justin Fields didn't care and still beat him to the edge. And I think part of it is the knee injury because actually when I broke down Harold Landry's film, he was pretty impressive defending Josh Allen when he was trying to run sideline to sideline with Tennessee. But obviously doesn't quite have that mobility right now, given the injuries that he has had to battle. So Anthony Jennings is also a guy where when he's in the game, I think that's a situation where you need to trust your linebackers and just let your defensive line play free. Go after Derrick Henry, and if they're unblocked, don't think about it, just trigger, and then the linebackers come down and they chase Lamar Jackson if he pulls. Whereas if it's an Elijah Ponder, him, I think you can maybe trust to really just be the read man and chase Lamar sideline to sideline because he's shown he can do that. Needs to be better as a tackler. Also, they've been better against outside runs. I think the corners have been a big part of that, but no Carlton Davis potentially, no Marcus Jones potentially. The Ravens love their toss plays, their conventional toss plays. They'll, do like the Patriots or they'll fake it one way and then toss the other. So you need to be very gap sound when they test the perimeter. And Charles Woods is a special teamer, so you're hoping that, he's got that fight. Miles Battle, as a guy who's at the bottom of the roster, you're hoping that he can, bring some physicality as well. But that's going to be a big test, and their eye discipline has to be on point. So in the run game, you got to defend the tosses, got to defend the read options, but also the design quarterback runs. They're not going to get away from those. Sometimes nobody's going to be in the backfield, and Lamar Jackson's still going to carry it. You got burned by that last week from Josh Allen, and they'll bust out Wildcat, where it'll just be Derrick Henry in the backfield, and that's something the Giants scored on a few weeks back. So the Patriots have not shown that they can deal with a lot of these non-conventional run game things on a consistent basis. Justin Fields has hurt them. Josh Allen has hurt them. The Saints hurt them earlier in the year with Spencer Rattler and Taysom Hill. So this is going to be, you've had your tests and you've had your things on film that you struggle with or not. Now let's see what your plan is to stop it. And on top of that, obviously the scramble is just to kind of put a bow on this. Don't make it easy for Lamar Jackson by one, not having miscommunications, trying to pick and create line games where you manufacture pressure, but then no one ends up doing anything and you create gaps in your protections or, just not being gap sound. And when you need to compress the pocket, somebody wanting to do a little too much and getting out of their lanes. So the fundamentals, obviously, as with any week, need to be on point, but this week more than ever. And also just from fundamental perspective, I think you need to be very cautious of who's on the field and putting them or who's on the field in certain situations and making sure they're in the best positions to succeed.
So let me ask you, kind of point blank here, talking about the injuries and how the Patriots have been susceptible to A, mobile quarterbacks, but B, run games with some wrinkles and, having to be in place and in position and have your fundamentals in check is obviously huge. But just like straight up today, do you think they have the horses to stop this? Even if they do cover it the right way, even if they are gap sound, even if they do, I guess, get themselves in the way and in these rush lanes, are they just overpowered with what the Ravens have compared to what they have on defense right now, given the injuries and given the lack of success they've had against the run game?
I think they could be, to be honest, and that's why I don't love the matchup and why I am worried about it, because at full strength, I think that, at least you have some hope. when you're so banged up, again, it's just unprecedented. It's like with the offense and the defense kind of laying a goose egg in an entire half. It's something we've never seen before. Well, we haven't seen them this banged up, and when they have gotten injured, we've mentioned with the pass rush, the actual pressure efficiency has still been pretty consistent, but there is a palpable difference when Milton's not out there. We also talked about how they had to accommodate through their scheme. So I don't really know how you just adapt to not having two more starters in addition to having two up the spine of your defense that have been missing. But, I guess we'll see, but I'll be honest, I'm not feeling terribly optimistic.
I'll throw this in there. Hat tip to our friend Evan Lazar, who I was watching practice with a bit today. He mentioned, and we posted a video of it on CLNS where the running backs were going through a fumble drill, high and tight, defenders coming in and punch them. That also might signal that the Patriots understand they need to force some turnovers in this one too. And that might be, even if they can't keep the run game at bay, even if they do let Lamar kind of go wild on them, if they can force a turnover or two and turn the game around that way, and help themselves, given the fact that they're overmatched against this Ravens offense, then maybe that's the little wrinkle, the little recipe they can get. But you got to try and turn the football over, because as we mentioned in yesterday's show, that's been one of the reasons why this Patriots defense has not been up to snuff in these last couple of weeks. So those are our game keys here for Patriots Daily. Again, Pat's got to improve against man coverage in the pass game, have to continue to lean into the ground game and get that going, both for this week and then leading into some playoff success if you can have it as well. And then, of course, contain Lamar Jackson, contain this Ravens run game, and go through it from there. Patriots back on the field again tomorrow on Friday. So we'll have you covered down there in Foxborough. And then we're back at it Sunday where we'll have a Discord chat Friday as well. Make sure that members here, if you want to join, we got our 3 p.m. Normal Friday Discord chat. Everyone can join. Members can ask questions. So join us over at clnsmedia.com/Discord and get on the phone tomorrow at 3 o'clock. And then Sunday, it's game day. We have a night game. Patriots playing the Ravens at 8:20, 8:15. What time is Sunday? 8:20 Sunday Night Football. We'll have a post-game show as always. So make sure you keep it here, rate, review, and subscribe. Taylor, before we let you go rest up, any final thoughts before we get into the weekend, just heading into this matchup? And more importantly, how are you feeling? I'm
feeling ready to take a nap.
Good.
That's my final thought.
There you go. Easier said than done. Go ahead, rest up. Taylor's been grinding out this week, like I said, even though he's sick as a dog. So thoughts and prayers to our friend TK to get better before the weekend so we can have him on a rip-roaring, potentially Patriots winning Patriots post-game show on Sunday night. So good stuff as always, Taylor. Thank you guys all for tuning in. We appreciate the love and support as always. See you tomorrow on Discord. And until then, take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Take care of yourself, Taylor. And we'll see you soon.